Watch this, then let's have a conversation.
Tell me how you define white identity and what you think is being erased about white identity.
Certain types of Anglo-derived culture that comes from our history.
Like what?
Let me think about this. Senator, I would say if you were to look at the book by one of your former Senate colleagues, Born Fighting, about the sort of Scotch-Irish military culture and certain, pride that went with that, that would be one example. Obviously, you could have sub-elements of that culture. You could have Italians, you could have Irish, and those are in many ways more distinct.
You're worried about white culture. You're not worried about, you're now retreating to ethnic identity. You don't speak about ethnic identity. You speak about white identity. So tell me the values that stitch together white identity and that make it different than black identity.
I would say that the white church is very different than the black church in terms of its tone and style on average. Foodways could often be different.
And those
music could be different.
And those are being erased.
Music could be different. Well, if you look at the Super Bowl halftime show, which was not in English this year.
So our ability to access white churches or white food or white music is being erased?
So a white nationalist was asked to define white culture because he claimed that there's a white cultural genocide happening in this country. And when pressed about it, he couldn't define it. This is why education matters, because for some reason, these people still do not know the difference between ethnicity, race, and nationality. But they think that there is a white cultural genocide. White is a racial category. It was literally created to unify different European ethnic groups into one dominant group. So when someone says that white culture is being erased, what are they actually talking about? Because if you can't define it, how is it being erased? Now, I'm going to contrast that with black culture because black Americans don't know our specific ethnic origins. Yeah, we can do a test and all of those things, but a lot of us don't know because of slavery, obviously. So we built culture here. And I've talked about this so many times, but that's why we created our food, our language patterns, our style, our art, our music. It was for survival and connection so that trauma wouldn't be the only thing bonding us. That's why it is so clearly defined. That's why it is recognizable. That's why it has had such an impact on the world. But all this talk about a white cultural genocide, it isn't cultural erasure. It's fear. They know that they're not going to be the default anymore. They are fearing not being centered. They are fearing becoming the demographic minority. And I'm going to ask this question again because I seem to be asking it on a weekly basis. If being a minority isn't inherently bad, why are you so afraid of becoming one? Also, ain't nobody worried about white food being erased. White people don't even like white food.